Hello, and welcome to From Lansing with Love. I'm your host, State Representative Leslie Love. Every month we discuss a different topic with interesting guests. I hope you will find this program both informative and insightful. Today's show is about human trafficking. Human trafficking is a horrendous crime that affects thousands of our most vulnerable citizens. It's a $32 billion a year criminal enterprise of organized crime that traps thousands of men, women, and children into forced labor or sexual exploitation. This is a form of modern-day slavery, and it's getting worse, and it's set to overtake drug trafficking as the #1 criminal enterprise. It's hard to find accurate data on human trafficking because it only includes cases reported, and experts agree it's a crime that is underreported. The National Human Trafficking Hotline and Polaris Be Free text line reported over 8,000 cases of human trafficking in the United States in 2016. And that includes 246 cases which occurred right here in Michigan. And that number has more than doubled over the last 4 years. So there are basically two forms of human trafficking: sex and labor trafficking, with sex trafficking representing 73% compared to labor trafficking at 14%. So today I have special guests that are going to join me so we can explore the issue of human trafficking. My first guest today is Mary Engelman, the Executive Director of Michigan Women's Commission. She was appointed to head the commission by the governor this past November. Mary has an extensive background in leadership, government affairs, and community outreach, as well as operations and budget management. The Women's Commission was created by statute in 1968 with its 15 members serving 3-year terms and appointed by the governor. One of the commission's main duties includes directing attention to critical problems confronting women, and a major initiative is raising awareness of human trafficking in Michigan. So thank you for being here, Mary, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. You're right. It's a big issue, and it's a huge problem in our state of Michigan.
It is. And so I'm glad you're here to join us because I know the commission has done some work on human trafficking. So can you tell us a little bit about what the commission is doing around the issue of human trafficking?
Absolutely. This really became one of our initiatives in 2013, and we really worked with the governor's office, the attorney general, state, federal, locally, to kind of create some legislation to really refresh our laws on human trafficking and include components like training. And so we were able to give input into that. We've also set up there's numerous task force for human trafficking throughout the state of Michigan. And we were really instrumental in creating one for Southwest Michigan. And it's very interesting because with that creation, some of our commissioners that serve on that, and we have commissioners that serve on pretty much all of the task force throughout Michigan, have really made an effort to really stop it in that area. Mm-hmm. And so you've seen just an overflowing of just activity and grassroots, where we even created a nonprofit to kind of to fund safe haven places for women that are at risk, men that are at risk, and especially children that are at risk.
Okay. So can you give me some examples of, you mentioned broadly some of the programs, but specifically of how you're bringing awareness to human trafficking problems?
Absolutely. We are working with different departments, different state departments, local departments. We go around and we actually do training. We have been instrumental in bringing what is called SAFE to Michigan. And this is a program that actually looks at the hospitality industry. And so we go in and we actually train them. And there was one arrest last year through our efforts where, hotel staff recognized that there was human trafficking happening in their hotel.
Right.
So that's another initiative that we do. So we're really working the grassroots efforts and education and making certain that we're looking at national programs and bringing it together and working with all of our different departments.
Well, this is good that you bring up the example of the hotel, because when we talk about human trafficking, oftentimes it is sex trafficking. Right. But there's also labor trafficking too.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about the labor? Okay.
Definitely. So within the labor industry, there's a misconception. If you've ever seen that movie Taken, that's not really what human trafficking truly is about. That's really transportation trafficking. This is human trafficking where it can happen in our neighborhoods, it happens in our schools, it happens I mean, it is a community issue. And so when you look at labor, you're talking about the service industries. You're looking at the nail salons. You're looking at anything that has service. There are people that are engaged in human trafficking that may not even know, like legitimate companies and non-legitimate. And I'm going to give you an example. We are housed within, the Michigan Women's Commission is housed within civil rights. And we do partnerships with Homeland Security and all kinds of other partners throughout the state. And there was a grower, a farmer, a grower that recognized that there was some odd behavior with some of his farm workers. What they found out was it was a human trafficking ring. And that means that you can have people that are migrant workers working on a farm, you know, helping plant and doing those things, but they don't have a right. They don't have any rights. They are being managed by someone or that ring. They are, when they go home at night, they don't have a home. They could be locked behind closed doors. They could be told when they can eat. They're not allowed to communicate with people. They are completely, their free will is completely gone.
Wow.
And so they're completely regulated by the ring. Oftentimes they're paid nothing or they're paid very little. So it is, I mean, and there, you know, and that's why we have Homeland Security involved.
So are you finding in the studies that these are domestic, people from America, or are these immigrants that are mostly being labor trafficked?
A combination.
Okay.
Combination, but you're also seeing child trafficking too.
Okay.
And that's also where you can see child labor. So human trafficking is so large and so broad that we may not even recognize the signs as just, you know, going out and someone does your nails or someone does your hair. You just don't know. And so we are trying to educate people in the community to recognize signs of that.
Okay.
So
speaking of hair and nails, I'm looking at your hands.
Yes.
And I noticed you have this X on your hand.
Yes, I do.
So can you see the X on her hand? What's the X about?
So today is end human trafficking, end modern day slavery, and today is a national day for it. So the point is you wear the red X and people inquire, and then it's an opportunity to talk about it. It's an opportunity to educate people, and so that's what we're doing. And you're seeing this phenomenal. I mean, we talked about that this industry is within billions of dollars of making money. It's second to illegal drugs. I mean, that is just huge, and it's growing worldwide. Worldwide, I mean, it's within the $100 billion industry.
Why is that? And what's motivating? It blows my mind as being a part of the Progressive Women's Caucus here on the state level, and we talk about pay equity and rights for women, and then this human trafficking issue, and it is mostly women and female children who are being trafficked.
Right.
But there's also men and boys that are part of this industry too. Just how widespread is human trafficking in Michigan, actually?
So when you look at national numbers and you look at even Michigan numbers, the stats are pretty much to every 30 men that are human trafficked, there are 200 women. Every 45 man and woman that are involved in human trafficking, there are 90 minors that are being human trafficked. Wow. So, I mean, the numbers are, and these are just reported numbers. And as you said, Representative, you know, people aren't coming out because sometimes they don't know that they're in this. They don't know that they're being trafficked. And so they're absolutely, think about it, if you're a migrant worker and you come here and you don't have a visa and you don't have a lot of means, and someone says, okay, I will give you food and I'll give you housing, and you're gonna go and work all day. What options do you have? If you're an at-risk person, and we're not talking just about the urban areas, we're talking about suburban, we're talking about everywhere. I mean, it is like if you have been violated somewhere, or if you've had a divorced parent that maybe you're just emotionally not equipped to handle it, you know, you're so vulnerable. And then when you look at the internet, think about it. You know, back in the day when I was a little kid, the internet wasn't really prevalent. So mom can say, okay, I know she's going to be at school during this time. I know she's going to be here. I know she's going to be here. Well, now our children are so vulnerable that they are talking to the world. And they are subjected to potential harm through that. And that's a huge issue. And how do we wrap our arms around this?
So what are some of the next steps and the ways that the commission will address human trafficking in Michigan?
Education, education, education. We are looking at it as a problem that really, the human trafficking is the end all, right? But then there's a lot of other things that happen within that realm, like, where there are vulnerable people on campuses, where they're being molested and all kinds of other stuff. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create educational programs to talk to our youth, talk to our middle school girls, talk to our middle school boys. How do you act? What signs should you be looking for? So we want to educate. We're going around, we're doing training. We have been very pleased to be a part of training some of the hospitals. So some of our commissioners have been certified. And here's another thing. If you think you see human trafficking, if you think that something's weird, don't try to engage, especially if you have no training. Call 911 if there's going to be an immediate danger, or call the hotline. Get the resources. Don't move on your own. So, but really it's educating, it's really getting that message out there, and it's really saying, as a community, we need to know that look to your left, look to your right. Someone might be in that situation. Yeah. Let's not have the silos. Let's move together as a community.
But earlier you said there are cases where people don't know, particularly in labor. Exactly. I think you may know if you're being sex trafficked, but I could be wrong.
Right.
But if you're being if you're a part of a labor trafficking ring where you're being housed, you get food, and we take you somewhere and you work, whether that's on a farm or a nail salon. So I can actually go into one of the nail salons and have no idea that worker is being human trafficked, and the worker then doesn't know that they're being trafficked at all.
Exactly.
So that's part of the reason why we have low reporting numbers, but and they're not low. Human trafficking, the numbers are too high.
Exactly.
In Michigan, if we have 246 cases, those are the 246 we know of. So, are you working with employer education?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think that the other piece that you mentioned, the mental health, may affect whether a person's how they enter this, as well as drug abuse. I mean, you drug them, and you become addicted, and then now you're participating and engaging in something that you had absolutely you're blindsided by, and you're in a world of trouble. Anything else that the commission is doing that, or you want to bring awareness to?
Well, again, we are, what I'm really excited about is that we're taking on some new initiatives, because as a Women's Commission, our job is to help as many Michigan women as we can. We want to be a voice for as many women as we can. And so we're looking at different ways of just trying to do that. And really, the human trafficking, looking at sexual assault on campuses is another initiative. And another one is, we're going to have a talent shortage here. And so we want to get into the schools and encourage our ladies and girls to get involved in STEM. Because that's an area that we're going to need with the autonomous vehicle and all kinds of stuff, and what Michigan's known for. So I just think that we keep on moving, keep rolling up our sleeves and keep on moving, and it's been a fun ride.
Yes. Well, the Women's Commission is doing a lot of great work. I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to meet you. I know you're the new head lady in charge.
Or serving our state. Look at that, serving our state.
Doing a great job, and I thank you so much. We have some more guests coming on to continue to have this conversation. And so it's time for us now to take a short break, but we'll be right back after this.
And I can't change, even if I try.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind, love is patient.
Welcome back to From Lansing with Love. I'm here with Redford Township Police Officer Jennifer Mansfield and Dr. Dena Nazer, and we're talking about human trafficking. Officer Mansfield has more than 16 years of law enforcement experience and a long list of both community and law enforcement involvement. Jennifer joined the fight against human trafficking and founded SOAP, Redford Saving Our Adolescents from Prostitution, a chapter of the Ohio-based program, providing educational seminars to citizens and students, as well as initiating an outreach program to local hotels and high-impact areas. Dr. Nazer is the chief of the Child Protection Team at Children's Hospital of Michigan and an assistant professor of pediatrics at Wayne State University, my alma mater. She performs medical evaluations in suspected child sexual abuse cases at Kids Talk Medical Clinic. And in 2015, Dr. Nazer was appointed by the governor to a 3-year term of the Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board. Thank you both for being here. And I must say, Jennifer is a officer in my community, in my district, in the wonderful township of Redford. So welcome, ladies.
Hi there. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. So you both are involved in very important projects. You have SOAP and you're with the Kids Talk. Can you, first let me start with you, Jennifer. Can you talk to us about SOAP and what they're doing to address the issues of human trafficking?
So what SOAP is, you already mentioned it, it's Saving Our Adolescents from Prostitution. And this is an organization that was founded by Teresa Flores, who was a trafficking survivor right out of Birmingham, Michigan. So one of our neighborhoods right over here, and not one of our urban low areas. So we're talking big deal. And what she recalled when she came out to speak with us is one of the few times that she was actually alone and away from her traffickers was when she was in the restroom at hotels. And she thought, what a great way to reach out to other victims. So the idea of SOAP is we actually label little hotel-sized bars of soap with the trafficking hotline. And we put those bars of soap into the places where they can best reach the girls and boys, let's be honest, where they can both best reach them. So that was the initial aspect of SOAP. And then what we've also done is we've extended it into the education, like you guys talked about in the last segment. We're out talking to anybody in the community. I'd like to say I'm talking to the soccer moms out there that don't really truly believe that sex trafficking is here. They all picture the movie Taken, and they're thinking that it's in foreign countries. We're like, no, it's in your backyard. And we talk to the kids, and we talk to the adults in the community so they can help keep an eye on each other. And my goal is to help prevent victims as much as rescuing them. So that's kind of what SOAP is all about.
All right. And Dr. Nazer, tell us about the Kids Talk Medical Clinic. What do they do there?
Our medical clinic is actually part of the Kids Talk Children's Advocacy Center. And what a Children's Advocacy Center is that it's a center where all the services are hosted in one place. So we offer services to children who are suspected to be victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, children who witness violent crime, children who are severely neglected, and children who are suspected to be victims of human trafficking. And we offer them all the services, starting with forensic interviewing, offering them the therapy and the counseling, and then offering them the medical exam.
What's the first thing I do when I run out of that hotel, which I'm going to come back to and talk to you about the hotel? What does that person do? Where do they go? What would you advise is the first step for them?
I would advise as one of the first steps to do is find a professional, find either law enforcement or call the human trafficking hotline or find an emergency department. Find one of the professionals that have to do with human trafficking. And that's why we're trying to tell everybody that we are trying to get this message out. We're trying to get it to emergency medicine people. We're trying to get it to medical professionals, to law enforcement. And if you just reach out to any one of those, then the case should be referred to children's advocacy centers, and then that's how the medical exam is provided. So we don't have children coming directly to our center. We have them referred either by protective services or by law enforcement or by the prosecutors or other different professionals.
So Officer Mansfield, let's say I'm a person who's been human trafficked and I'm from Pennsylvania, but my person brought me to Michigan. And I was in this hotel and I got away. And I'm standing on Telegraph and 8 Mile. I don't know this area. I don't know where the hospital or where a professional anything is. What to do and if I call 911, hopefully they know 911 is universal in the United States. What will the police do?
You know, depending on what you tell us exactly happened, there's a couple of different avenues that we're going to take. The most important is ensuring your safety, right? So we're going to make sure that we get you immediately out of harm's way. So pick you up from wherever you might have been. And like the doctor says, we're going to get you in for a medical exam. You know, we've got to get you checked out, and I'm sure you'll talk about the different steps that need to be taken in that regard. And at that point, we're going to start gathering information. We're going to take statements. Obviously, one of the biggest things we want to know, were there other women and children and victims with you? Were there other boys with you? Because if there were, we need to immediately go about getting our investigation to go to try and figure out where you were held so that we can go get some of these other kids out. If that's the big one. But once you get there, like the doctor said, you can start the counseling, getting them into homes, rehab. Narcotics is a big issue with a lot of these victims and survivors. So there's all these different steps, and there's different people to reach out to, and we're all connected. We all know people. I don't have a housing unit. She doesn't have a housing unit, but we know who does.
Absolutely.
What are some of the signs that just a lay person may just be aware of to go, there might be some human trafficking going on here?
Well, some of the things you need to know as far as sex trafficking is concerned is what it is. And it's commercialized sex through force, fraud, or coercion. So the force could be the physical, right? The beatings, the assaults. Coercion is kind of like the blackmail. That's the fancy word for blackmail of it. And fraud is they're tricking you, right? So as a victim, you need to recognize that yourself. Because one of the easiest ways that sex trafficking starts with kids and girls is through the method of the, that charismatic older boyfriend who comes in there trying to be all sly and making the moves. And it progresses, right? So you need to know that. So if you're that outside person going to the hotels and that's what you need to picture in your head. If you see women, girls especially, checking into hotels with significantly older men. Could it be grandpa? It could, but the odds are against it. And then this is the best one. When you go to the hotel, how many bags do you take with you? You take a suitcase. You take a makeup bag. You probably take a bag for your shoes, right? I mean, women travel with a lot of stuff. These girls, they're coming in maybe with a backpack, more than likely with a plastic grocery bag, and that's their only belongings. Wow. So that's like one of your key things, because that's where the average person is going to come across these victims.
And when they come to the hospital, what are you finding as a medical professional?
So as a medical professional, we always need to look for signs. And what we're trying to do is that we're not trying to look for signs after something happens. We're trying to look for preventative signs. So the whole role of the medical provider comes into 3 different points. For starters, we need to prevent something from happening. So we need to prevent child abuse. We need to prevent human trafficking. And then once it happens, we need to be able to recognize it. And once we do recognize it, we need to refer these kids to child abuse pediatricians and children's advocacy centers so that they would have their appropriate exams. Some of the telling signs of human trafficking, or something that would tell you that this child is at risk, is runaway youth. So children that are running away from home, this is a huge thing. And there has been one of the studies that showed that 88% of girls who were victims of human trafficking, they had run away from home at least one time. And some of them run away from home multiple times, over and over and over again. And we're not trying to deal with children as they come in with just the problems that they come in with. We're trying to deal with the stem of the problem. Why is this child running away from home? When this child runs away from home, where are they staying? How are they paying rent? How are they getting food? Are they performing sexual acts in lieu of shelter? What are they doing when they're on the streets? Who's giving them the drugs that they're on? So we're trying to get to the stem of the problem. Because I'm sorry.
No, finish what you're saying.
Because what happens in children is that we don't really have to prove fraud, force, or coercion. So the definition is completely different in children, and that's something that we have to make very, very important. So in children, like Officer said, that in adults, you prove force, fraud, or coercion. But in children, you don't need any one of those.
Right.
And children really don't identify
100%.
themselves as victims. So it's up to us as medical professionals to
What's the
identify
age
them.
of that's considered a child?
Anyone who's less than 18.
Okay.
And they don't have the ability to consent to any commercialized sex. And that's what she's referring to.
Exactly.
So when you get these 16, 17-year-olds, there used to be this term, child prostitute. Like this teen was choosing to do that. No such thing anymore. Even at 16, even if you agree, no, you're not.
Do you have to have a trafficker for it to be considered trafficking, or you're doing it on your own?
In order for it to be considered trafficking, somebody has to be running the show. Having said that, a 17-year-old having commercialized sex is still illegal, if that makes sense. It's still a form of prostitution. But the idea behind trafficking is that someone else is profiting from it. So like when you see these girls or these kids and they're out there having sex for money, those kids, those women, those men, they're not seeing that money. That's going to somebody else. So that's the layman's terms, like if you have a prostitute, it's trafficking if the prostitute has a pimp. If they're self-employed, it's not trafficking. It's still prostitution, though. If that does that make sense? It's the easiest way to explain it.
There's so much I could go into in just that piece. But Doctor, have you noticed any health and mental problems from people rescued from being trafficked?
Yes. So we notice a lot of health problems when children are being rescued from human trafficking, or even when children are victims and they're coming in as runaways. So what we notice is that there are a lot of effects from being restrained or from being held against their will. Some of these children, they're kept in confined spaces. They're starved. They might be tortured so that they would perform more and more commercial sexualized acts. So we do find evidence of torture, evidence of strangulation, evidence of bruises on their body and skin. Other evidence that we find is that from the commercial sexual acts that they are forced to perform, they might come in with sexually transmitted infections. Some of them come in pregnant. Some of them come because they have a lot of genital injuries. So they might come in with genital bleeding and a lot of different complications from abortions that might have been on the street. So we find a lot of medical complaints. And what happens is that when they're on the street, they're actually offered some of the drugs. So they might come in as a drug overdose. They might come in attempting suicide or attempting to harm themselves or harm others. And there are a lot of mental health consequences as well.
Okay. What can someone do to avoid becoming a victim, and what can a bystander do to help a victim of human trafficking?
You know, avoiding becoming a victim, I think it's the education, the awareness, knowing what's going on. The groomers, remember the sly older boyfriends? Knowing what that's about. So it's all about getting that information out there. For parents, know where your kids are, and I've said it before, stop being your kid's friend, be their parent, be up in their business, know what they're doing, and put an end to it. I mean, that's the big thing. If you talk to Teresa Flores, she was trafficked for 2 years out of her home. She left every night and came back every morning, and it was always, what if her parents had opened her bedroom door one night and noticed she was gone? Check on your kids.
My other thing is that when we see children and when we examine children and evaluate them at Kids Talk, you'll notice that all of these are regular children. These are children who have hopes, have dreams, and they are part of families. Sometimes these families are broken. That might make these children more vulnerable. But I think what makes them vulnerable is just being a child. Just being someone who's under 18 makes you very, very, very vulnerable. So what we're trying to say is that these children don't wake up one day and say, well, I want to do commercial sexual acts, or I want to be a prostitute. These are things that are forced on them, whether you feel that the child made a choice to do something for money. So these are regular children, they're very vulnerable, and the more we focus on prevention, the more we focus on having the family really play a role in the life of the child, the better these children would have outcomes.
Education.
Education and awareness, both particularly on the part of the everyday citizen and all our law enforcement and our medical professionals. We're all responsible for looking out for each other. But that's all the time we have for today, and we can talk, and we need to continue this conversation. But I'd like to once again thank my guests, Mary Engelman of the Michigan Women's Commission, Officer Jennifer Mansfield of the Redford Township Police Department, and Dr. Dena Nazer of Children's Hospital of Michigan for joining us. And thanks to all of you for watching. If you have a show idea or would like to appear on the show, please contact my office, and that contact information will be on the screen, as well as the phone numbers that have been mentioned throughout this program. We also have the opportunity to see my two guests at a town hall that's coming up March 13th at 6 p.m. at the Redford Township District Library. So I hope that you will come out and join us there, and we'll continue the conversation in person. But until next time, be good to yourself and each other. And with that, we're all clear and out of here. Goodbye.